So I thought today we could first listen to a teaching, 2-3 minutes of a teaching, and then we will stay with the breath for some time. So I'll play the teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question, then I'll let you all go. Okay? Promise. Ha 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 ha. I have these questions in my mind. Who am I? Where have I come from? What is my duty? Where have I to go? How to get the answers to all these questions? Please guide. I would say just sit and look at your breath. Because the mind proliferates endless questions, never stops. And in the end, it cannot be answered by our conceptual mind, right? The conceptual mind is what's asking the questions. It will not receive, because whatever answers you will get more questions and more questions. You only get the answers from a silent mind. Our genuine mind, in the silence, knows the answers. It doesn't come in words. But we have to listen. And the only way to do that is to quieten down the mind, and then you can put the question and let it just percolate down through the silence of our inner being. And the answer will come that way. If we are just reading endless books, going to endless talks and thinking, the mind just goes around like this and this and this. Of course, it doesn't mean that we cannot read books, we cannot attend teaching for the answers. But however many questions are answered, there will be more questions. It doesn't end that way. The only real answers comes from within us, from our own wisdom mind. And that is a very silent mind. Okay, so thank you all very much.
So we saw the importance of looking at our breath. So I'm putting an alarm for myself, 5 minutes. We'll just keep coming back to the breath. We'll just stay with the breath. If we get lost in the thoughts, sensations, no matter, we'll just bring our attention back to the breath for 5 minutes. Yeah. So for 1 more minute, you'll just stay with the breath. So we see that only 5 minutes are enough to let us know that we are not yet masters of our mind. In 5 minutes, like there are umpteen number of thoughts that cross, and many times we get lost in, we stick to the thought, we begin to think the thought, and we have lost the thread of the breath. And no matter how many books we may have read, we see that there hardly is any control, any mastery. And that is the purpose, to, as mother also shares, to have mastery over oneself. And at least we begin to embark on the journey and to have a mind which is a bit quieter and relaxed, and where I have the power. Slowly as I practice, I have the power whether I want to think or not. So to make the sticky character that we have, usually we stick to thoughts, we stick to our stories in the head, although we don't want to, but we still do, and that makes us suffer. So if we can have this much of freedom, enough freedom, that I don't want to think right now, I'm just going to stay with the breath. And as we have listened to earlier teachings also, that we have to do it very, in a very relaxed manner. Like it's not like pushing away the thoughts and no, 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 I don't want to think. Thoughts are coming, we see, and if a thought comes, a feeling comes, we let it come, we let it go. We don't cling like a bee would just stick to the honey, or a fly would stick to the honey. We don't cling to it. We let it come, we let it go. Yeah. So one more short teaching, I'm putting it on, and then after that we can maybe share thoughts, reflections, if there are any. Yeah.
So who are we? The whole of Buddhist practice is designed, as I say, like the GPS, enlightenment for the sake of all beings. What does enlightenment mean? It means to wake up and abide in our essential nature, which is our Buddha nature. The reason why wisdom and compassion are so closely aligned is because the clearer that we see how things really are, the greater the compassion, because nobody knows that. How sad. All the time we're Buddhas and we don't even know. We think we're who we think we are. And so we suffer. And we cause suffering to others. And we mess everything up because we don't know. And so the clearer those great masters see this, the greater their love and compassion for us all. It's not just about having, compassion for sad little puppies. It's about seeing the whole condition and how we want so much to be happy. But because of our delusion, we create so much suffering for ourselves and for others. And that's terribly sad. We are just caught up in our delusion. So, mostly, people, all of us, are living at the very surface of our mind. Right? We are living on the waves of the ocean. Up and down, up and down, up and down, very surface, caught always in our chatter, endless, like having a television on that you can never turn off in your head. Endlessly going on, all the commercials and all the endless soap operas and all the, all nonsense that's on anybody's television. It's all in our head. Blah, 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 blah. The sad bits and the happy bits and all the memories. And all the hopes and fears. Blah, 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 blah. Can't turn it off. But there's another level. Our mindfulness. The ability to observe that without being drawn into it. Right? So in the shamatha practice and in the vipassana practices, we're honing that skill. To be able to observe and witness the mind without being drawn into the mind. Just seeing thoughts and emotions as thoughts and emotions, not me, not mine, just. So that's already a huge step forward. Right? We had the chattery TV mind is just the gross mind. And there's the ability to observe that, which is a more subtle level of mind, mindfulness, right? Nowadays, mindfulness is the big thing. And it's good. I mean, people say ordinary people shouldn't be taught mindfulness because they don't know it's Buddhist. Who cares? If we are able to help people to disassociate skillfully from their thoughts and their emotions and just to recognize thoughts and emotions as just thoughts and emotions, so that we are more in control of our mind instead of being controlled by our mind, then that's a good thing. Even just that. I mean, the ego, which is the conceptual thinking mind, is a terrible master, but it's a good servant. We're not trying to stop thinking. Thinking is a brilliant thing. We're not trying to end up blank. But we should be in control of the mind rather than controlled by it. Then, if we are in control of our mind, then it's a wonderful tool. But as long as the mind itself with the ego is in control, then we are enslaved, and by a very pitiless master. Anyway, so the ability to be present, to observe, to be mindful is the more subtle level of the mind. But it is still caught in duality, right? We are mindful of something. We are mindful of breath. We are mindful of postures. We are mindful of sounds. We are mindful of sensations, as in the Vipassana movement. We are mindful of the mind. So there is an observer and an observed. Now this is already a big step forward, right, from being normally just swept along by the current of our thinking. But it is still dualistic. Nonetheless, mindfulness, well cultivated and clear, it's like a bridge between the ordinary conceptual thinking, chattery mind and the deeper fundamental level of our mind, which is called the nature of the mind, or our Buddha nature, or Dhammakaya, or anything you want to call it. I mean, you are putting, again, truly, names to the nameless.
So we'll just again stay with the breath 5 minutes and then we'll open for sharing and reflections. In case thoughts will come in between, we'll just bring our attention back to the breath. Two more minutes. Yeah, so anything anyone wants to share? So it's a bit like, many a times we want to learn any instrument, and in the beginning, we just don't want to practice because the practice part is a little boring, many a times, just like riyaz, as we say in music. It's a little boring. We just directly want to sing the songs. But we know that we have to persist. So with meditation also, I think the way as we are doing it, staying with the breath is something which in the beginning, maybe the first day we may enjoy it. Wow, let me sit with the breath. But it is not a very interesting exercise in the beginning, although it may begin to become interesting later on. As we sit with the breath, we see many feelings, deep rooted feelings and deep rooted fears, deep rooted anxieties, worries. They come up, they surface. And now in that moment of them surfacing, whether what do I do with those? Many a times one can just panic when they come up. And the idea is to let them surface up because they have come up for cleaning, and mightily stay with the breath, cling to the breath, and letting them, the overwhelm of feeling or emotion, come like a dream and then pass away like a dream, not losing the grip over the breath. That is just one way of dealing with those deep rooted things that will surface in meditation specifically. But the first challenge for us is to stick to the breath. That itself is requiring a lot of practice. And yeah, that's why we were sharing in the meditation group that just 5 minutes in the morning doesn't require much. And constantly throughout the day, if we can bring our attention back to the breath while we are cooking or maybe going to the toilet, walking, just bringing our attention back to the breath, sitting, making tea, anything, and realizing that we again and again get lost in thoughts which do not give us much, which we still remain empty handed by thinking repetitively about those stories in the head. Don't get anything. And as we were listening to the first teaching, that the true answers, true resolutions we get in a silent mind. So at least we can begin to do that for ourselves. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, anything anyone wants to, any question, any doubt, any reflection wants to share? Yes, Badalji.
Good morning. Uh, I was told that maybe a selected place and selected time means exactly on the same time. These two things also probably enhances the concentration on the uh, path. So is it true or?
Have you tried it?
Yes.
Do you feel it's true for you?
Yes, I feel it's helping.
Yeah. So I think that's it. If it's true for you, if it works for you. But I'm sure it has its own benefits. Many a times, for many of us, it may not be possible because of the circumstances. If a person is moving all the time, maybe we are in a job that requires movement and traveling, and I just have to find 5 minutes wherever I am in the middle of my job to sit quietly with the breath. So in that case, I don't have any option, and wherever I find time for 5 minutes, I sit with the breath. So, but I agree, it may help, sitting at a like if I get up 7:15, I get up 7:15 and meditate for 10, 15, whatever minutes every morning. And maybe the place is also, if possible, the same. It does create a bit of a difference, but again, not to give too much obsession to it. But if it helps, it helps. If you are able to do it, it's helping you. I think that's all that matters. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. People say that it does create some energy is created around that space, and you also, the mind and body get to tend into a habit of sitting every day. Just for example, if I am say looking at sunset every day with a friend, so I get into a habit. Now if once I get into a habit, every time I look at the sunset, I am reminded of that friend with whom I look at the sunset. So it's almost like that we kind of get into this little habit, and if it's a good habit that one is forming, uh, one can go with it for as long as it benefits. The main purpose is the benefit, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Thich Nhat Hanh also talks about being mindful of whatever we are doing. I think that really helps, because as Tenzin Palmo was sharing, that mindfulness is like a bridge to our true nature of the mind, which is pure awareness, shining bright awareness, without any clinginess. And that awareness never sticks to anything, if we actually see. Just like space, there is a space and there are things in the space, like a bottle, a table, or a bed. Now if the bed is to go away from that space, the space won't say, no, 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 the bed, you can't go away. Because by nature, space is detached. Things can come there and things can go from there. So just like that, our true state of awareness, true being of awareness, is detached by nature. And we don't have to practice letting go. Many a times we talk about practicing letting go, practicing detachment. But if we become mindful of whatever we are doing, slowly this becomes a bridge to our true nature of awareness, pure awareness. And we realize that by nature we are detached. By nature, just like space is detached from all the objects that are in space. I am sitting in space, but I'm now, if I'm moving from this room and leaving the space here, the space won't say, don't go, don't go. It won't stick to me. So that's our very nature. That's our true nature. It's a detached nature. We are free. Uh, if we look at our true nature, we are naturally free. There is also a teaching by Rupert Spira on this practice of letting go, that we can't practice letting go, he shares, because by nature we are free. As awareness, we are free. But when we are in this chattery mind, we stick to ideas, we stick to our stories, what happened in the past, what will happen in the future. This is me, I'm the mother, I'm the daughter. So we stick to all these limited roles, conceptions, and there we suffer. In sticking we suffer, when we make ourselves limited. So if there is no reflection from anyone, is it okay, or maybe it's too much? If it's too much, I can not play it today. A short teaching by Rupert Spira on uh, that we cannot practice letting go. It's actually our true nature. Anyone? Is it okay if we go ahead, watch it, or we don't have to?
If we speak of
Me,
letting,
yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So let's listen to this. After this, we can wind up. So he's sharing, I think somebody has asked a question about practicing letting go, and he's sharing that we cannot really practice letting go. So let's hear. It's about 4 minutes.
Letting go of the identification, that is an activity of the mind. Rather than letting go of the identification, investigate the nature of the one that seems to be letting go. If we deeply investigate that one, we find that it is not attached to any experience in the first place. And it is therefore not necessary for that one to practice letting go of anything, because in its own experience of itself, it is already self-fulfilled, independent, free, self-knowing. The screen, in other words, doesn't have to let go. When the movie comes to an end, the screen doesn't practice letting go of the movie. It is the character in the movie that has to practice letting go of her attachments. But the nature of the screen is already unattached. It is unattached or free by nature, at its origin, not as the result of some practice. So rather than practice letting go or giving up, investigate the nature of the I that is letting go. Because if you practice letting go, you will remain as a limited I that has let go of a certain amount of her attachments. But that limited I will still remain. And that limited I can only remain by being attached to or attending to certain objects. So somewhere in the picture there will be subtle attachments, even though you may have let go of many of your previous attachments. So it's fine to do that to as a preliminary, to loosen up the density and solidity of the ego, but I would recommend investigating its nature. In other words, seeing the absolute non-existence of the separate self. Then, whether there is something for the separate self to let go of or not becomes irrelevant.
So I think this much is enough. Just a second.
Also.
So what he was sharing, I don't know if we could follow. So he was basically sharing that if a screen is there, that's the metaphor he uses many a times, and a movie is appearing on the screen, I just have to investigate the character of the movie. And the deeper I go to investigate the character of the movie, I see that actually there is no character, it's only a projection on the screen. It's actually what we see in theaters. If I'm seeing a villain who is murdering, for example, or a hero who is saving, and if I go close to the screen and try to find that hero, we won't find it. We won't find any hero or a victim or a slave. We won't find him there. All that we find there is the screen. And the moment the projection is over, the only thing that remains is the screen. And very often he relates the screen of our awareness, with which I see a thought, I see a feeling, I see a bodily sensation. That seeing, that awareness, on which thoughts and feelings emerge. So thoughts and feelings and sensations are like a movie happening on the screen of awareness. And if I know myself as awareness, then I don't have to practice letting go, because all that is happening is appearance of thoughts and feelings and sensations, and they disappear, appear, disappear, appear, disappear. Then I see that I'm not tied to anything. And that's true freedom. To realize, that's why we call it self-realization. That I realized that I was free all the time. But it's easier said than done, because we again and again go back into the story very deeply and very stickily. And that's why we have to make mindfulness first, a daily, if I can say, a practice, if we want to truly realize who we truly are. That basically we are all unattached, and all the roles that we play, all the dramas of our lives, they are nothing but appearances and disappearances on the screen of awareness. I am aware of the story, I am aware of the drama, I am aware of this disease that I have. But the disease is happening to something in the movie, right? And although at a relative level I will still take steps, it's not that I would not take steps, because we live on a relative level. So I will go to the doctor and I'll take the medicine, but at an absolute level nothing is really happening to me. And if we can begin to live more and more at that deeper level, then it liberates us of a really enormous amount of suffering that we generate for ourselves. If we believe into those roles and limitations of our limited mind. Yeah. So anything before we close? We usually do it for those of us who are here for the first time, we usually do it for about 45 minutes in the morning, 7:15 to 8, usually. Sometimes it gets a bit stretched. So anything, any last comments from anyone before we close? All right. So wishing everyone a very happy, good day, mindful day. And in the middle of the day, we can bring our attention back to, I'm aware I'm thinking, I'm aware I'm getting angry, I'm aware I'm walking, and just like that go through so fill up the gaps of unawareness we usually in which we are lost. Fill up this all the gaps with lots of awareness, if one can say. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
All
for
right. Thank you.
thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye bye.